I-35 points north and east, a level 3 of 5, enhanced risk for numerous severe thunderstorms possible. Here's the tornado outlook. 10% risk is very rare for our area. See these little lines? Those hatch marks means possibility of strong tornadoes, EF2 or greater. That's 111 mile per hour winds or stronger, potentially. All hazards are in play, highest toward the east. So here's a look at future clouds and radar. The green corresponds to the muggy air. Tomorrow morning, patchy areas of light rain and drizzle, no big deal. By lunchtime, though, we're seeing breaks in the overcast. We may start to see some storms bubble up, although the majority will probably be to our north and east, but some could be strong, and if they do get going, they could rotate and quickly turn possible into warned storms. Then the cold front's on the approach. Drier air to the west, and the temperatures are going to be dropping behind the front, and the storms are going to be building, perhaps around 7 o'clock or so. Big line of nasty.
Charles, how's it going? Hope everybody's doing well. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I am doing Chicks Chats right now, but on my other computer, I'm actually also watching the score of the World Series game. Houston 3, Philly 2, bottom of the ninth, 2 out. Anyway, I'm sure some of you are as well. Jesse, hello. Hope you're doing well. Good evening, Danny Smith. Thanks for hopping on board. All right, so here's the deal. We have a weather alert. It will be in effect Friday afternoon through Friday evening. Reason being, potential for not just severe thunderstorms, but we actually have a heightened threat for possible strong tornadoes. I don't like to hear those words, and when the Storm Prediction Center extended its risk of 10% tornado threat, including the potential for EF2 or stronger, which is 111 miles per hour or greater, gotta tell you, I became extra concerned. So wanted to give you all the information that I have right now, and we'll kind of walk through it and hopefully arm you with as much preparedness information as possible as we look ahead to the event that's going to be coming through on Friday. Buzzy, hello to you. Chris Bennett, how's it going in Washington? Natalie, hi, how are you? And William checking in. All right, so we start you off with a look at the 7-day forecast. It's going to be humid. It's going to be uncomfortable in the morning with some spotty light rain drizzle showers, but nothing severe. What is likely to happen, though, is by around lunchtime, we're going to see breaks in the overcast. When the sun goes out, it is going to help to destabilize the atmosphere. So originally in the morning, we're going to have what's called a capped atmosphere. It'll be a very stable atmosphere with all the cloud cover. But as soon as the clouds clear and the breaks in the overcast and the sunshine peaks out, we see temperatures warm, instability rise. Those are not things you want to see given this situation. The more unstable we are, the more ripe we are for possible storms to fire. I actually think we're going to have them in 2 rounds. Less convinced that we'll see a whole lot going on with storms ahead of the front, but there could be some isolated storms that do pop in front and ahead at the front in the afternoon hours, and any of those that manage to take full advantage of the instability around and possibility of some rotation could get nasty. Most likely Milam County points north and east. Then a line of storms is actually going to be pushing through with the cold front, moving from west to east from the eastern hill country all the way out toward LaGrange and eventually toward the coast. Those of you watching the western hill country, honestly, you might not even get rain at all. Not just severe storm risk, you might not see rain, period, because this may literally kind of develop almost instantaneously near I-35 and then track eastward with the highest potential. Larry says getting the coast ready, or getting the closet ready. I thought you said coast. Sorry, that was my bad reading. Ready for tomorrow. Yeah, always good to have your safe place. Know where you would go in the event that a tornado warning is issued. Just for your reference, EF2 is what the Round Rock Granger tornado was rated back on March 21st, and this is our highest severe weather threat since then. It happened then. We saw Gerald and EF1 just a couple of weeks ago, so better safe than sorry. That is my mantra, and I'm going to stick to it. Larry, hello. Hope you're doing well. You say one more strike. Rhonda or Sandra, asking about Georgetown. There's no way to know if a tornado is going to hit any specific spot, but what we can say is where there is potential that is higher, and Williamson County is among the highest risks in the CBS Austin area with that 10% possibility, as well as perhaps the possibility of stronger tornadoes. Danny says, on at the same time, yes. You say full count. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are like watching, waiting. Did it go final? It may have gone final. Did it go final? It's always hard for me to see because I'm kind of streaming it after the fact. Okay, so here's the 7-day forecast. We'll kind of get through this first of all. And the overriding theme with this is that after we get through our weather alert day right here, I'm going to circle that for you, then it's pretty quiet. We've got nice, pleasant weekend, lower humidity, and then next week, no big deal. Election day, might see a little patchy drizzle in the morning, but aside from that, looking pretty quiet overall. Okay, what to expect with this weather alert? Big question a lot of people are asking me is, what time? That's the tricky thing. We might see storms as early as lunchtime, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, probably not a big deal, but then there's going to be that corridor of time where we watch for an isolated storm to pop that could get nasty. But the actual cold front itself, for the hill country, which probably won't see much of anything at all, I'm going to say the hill country will be prior to 5 p.m. I-35 corridor with the actual cold front, probably looking at a corridor between about 4 and 8 p.m. And then areas to the east will be as late as, say, 5 p.m. to around 11 p.m. Those are going to be your main time frames from west to east across the area. Right now it's 75. Our high temperature made it to 84. If you spent any time outside today, you know that the muggy air is in place. We do have a southeasterly wind pulling in off the Gulf of Mexico, and that is what is going to continue to pull in plentiful moisture. So, for instance, let's take a look at the dew points. Dew points are a measure of the moisture in the atmosphere, and we're right now on that edge of muggy. Once we hit a dew point of 70, which has just happened for areas to the east and southeast of Austin, 70 is my threshold for when it just is miserable. One of the things that you need in order to get storms is moisture. Well, there is no lack of moisture. Next thing you need is lift, which will come in the form of the front, and then you also need instability. Well, a lot of times we talk about how the atmosphere is capped. So what I'm showing you right now is an animation of the atmospheric lid or cap on the atmosphere. So overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, those blue shaded areas, that means that there's a lid on the atmosphere. We're not going to get severe thunderstorms. However, look what happens around lunchtime. Boom! There's no more blue. You know what that means? That means the cap disappears. Once the cap disappears, that enables our atmosphere to basically be like, storms, go, 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 blossom. Here's the instability tracker. This is something called CAPE, convective available potential energy. Whenever you have a lot of CAPE in the atmosphere, which is indicative in this loop with the brighter yellow colors, right about there. See how noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, on toward 4, 5 o'clock? See those dark yellows and orange colors? That is very high instability. You'll notice if you're in the hill country, you never get into the yellows. That's why I'm not so concerned about the hill country. I think that you'll probably see very little, if anything. But I-35 points east through the afternoon and into the early evening, you're going to be in the soup. You've got the fuel for the storms. So think of it as like driving a car. Gas for the car is that instability. Then you need something that's going to be like your starter, to where you can turn the key and it'll turn on. That cold front is going to provide the lift, which is going to start things up. And then you need something to rev that engine, and that will be in the form of a pretty potent upper level disturbance, a trough of low pressure is what it's called, that's going to be pulling into the panhandle. And that is likely to basically be one more instigator to make for severe weather potential that could be, unfortunately, on the high side. So here is the big picture. From 1 p.m. at the earliest to 11 p.m. at the latest, from west to east, highest risk east of I-35. You can see the area shaded in orange. That's a level 3 of 5 enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms. Biggest risks are going to be wind gusts up to 65 miles per hour. Unfortunately, the risk of strong tornadoes and possibly hail up to the size of ping pong balls. Larry's saying it looks like the atmosphere is getting... Oh, and I missed the tail end. Astros won, says Stephanie. So I've got my phone up as well so I can read the rest of it. Atmosphere getting more prime than they thought earlier in the week. Yeah, it does, unfortunately, look like it's going to be tough. Laura says, keep telling yourself to stay up, but don't stay up. Get some rest, because tomorrow you're going to be on edge. Larry says, Astros win. Buzzy says, Astros win. All right. So here's the deal. We have the stage set. Does that mean that if you're in the orange area, you're going to get severe thunderstorms? Not necessarily, but that means you are at a greater risk of seeing those severe thunderstorms. Here's your hour-by-hour forecast. To be honest with you, 6 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m., even noon, we're just going to see spotty showers here and there. No big deal, because remember that cap, that lid on the atmosphere? It's going to be stuck over us and we'll be just fine. Anything after noon is when we may see some isolated heavier storms pop up, and some of those could spin. And we may see tornadoes. Let's hope not, but we have the potential. And then on through the evening hours, a line of storms develops, and that will be when the damaging wind threat will be the highest. However, even along a line of storms, you can have little notches or little eddies, if you will. That's exactly what happened with the Gerald tornado a couple of weeks ago. It was a line of storms, but along that line, there was just a little notch there, and that's where that spin happened, and it turned into an EF1 tornado that was on the ground for only 7 minutes, but it did damage. So here you go. Here are the storm risks. Highest east of I-35. Hail risk is low. Wind risk is the highest. It's on the high end of moderate. Tornado risk, unfortunately, is in the moderate range, especially east of I-35. Flooding, not going to happen. At this point, the storms are going to race so far, so quickly, you may not even get an inch of rain out of this. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're in the Western Hill Country, you might not even get any rain, period. All right, so remember I told you 3 ingredients: moisture, lift, and stability. In the green, that's where we've got the moisture in place. The Gulf of Mexico, moisture streaming in. We've got the really high humidity. Then we need lift. That's going to come in the form of this cold front right here, which is already pushing its way into far west Texas, east of El Paso. And then we need instability. See this upper level disturbance? This is an area of low pressure that's digging down into Arizona, and it is going to eject its way off into the Texas Panhandle and then move its way off toward the north and east. There is a big contrast. You might be able to see it's snowing right now in places like Denver, Colorado. So we've got a huge temperature contrast, we've got the moisture, we've got the lift, we've got the instability. We just have to iron out all the specific little details, which frankly, the computer models are not all on board with exactly how this is going to evolve, but in general, it looks likely that the highest risk of severe thunderstorms, including the highest risk of significant tornadoes, might actually be closer to right here where the 3 is. Northeast Texas is probably going to be the area where the things congeal the most. However, there could, on the tail end of that, be some action that happens right in our area, which is why I want you to make sure to know multiple ways of getting watches, warnings, advisories. If you don't have our app already, download our CBS Austin Weather app or your favorite radar app of choice. My favorite paid radar app is Radar Scope. I use it all the time, but I probably have about 8 or 10 different radar apps on my phone. I have my radar on my phone. I have Radar Omega on my phone. I have those of you who are familiar with Windy, I have that on my phone. I have lots of different apps on my phone because I figure no reason to put all my eggs in one basket. So I've got multiple ways myself. I also subscribe to Warn Central Texas. Have you guys heard of that? Warn Central Texas is a way where you can either sign up for text alerts or email alerts in order to get warnings whenever they're issued. So yeah, anything you can do to make sure you stay safe. Yellow is slight risk. I'm not as concerned about you. Orange, that's the enhanced risk. Numerous severe thunderstorms are possible. So that's the area of biggest concern. Now here's a look at the tornado outlook, which I don't think I've even used this on the air more than maybe a dozen times over the years because we don't generally get ourselves into this big of a tornado threat. A 2% risk? Yeah. A 5% risk? Sometimes. And when I see 5% for our area, I'm like, ooh. But when I see 10% for our area, literally I'm like, hold the phone. Big deal. Pay attention. And finally, whenever you've got these hatch marks, which is these, oops, sorry, let me go back one more time. Whenever you see those hatch marks, which is the yellow shaded area, that corresponds to potential of tornadoes stronger than EF2. The hatch mark, just to show you, extends all the way from Austin and all the way northward to eastern sections of the DFW Metroplex, including Dallas, all the way up toward Texarkana, and then into southeastern sections of Oklahoma. So that is the corridor with the highest potential for rotating thunderstorms, possible supercells. The majority of that would be ahead of the actual cold front. So here's a look: tornado, hail, wind, each of these showing the highest risks east of Austin, and basically the red that you see in the tornado area is the highest of our area for tornadoes. The red you can see for wind is the highest of the area for winds, and then the yellow for hail essentially means that we could see some large hail, but that's not going to be the primary threat. Okay, here's a big picture look at how things could evolve as we make our way through the morning. Timestamp shows 8:30 in the morning on Friday, and you can see some, we'll call them popcorn showers and storms kind of developing. No big deal. Remember, that lid, that cap on the atmosphere is strong and in charge. So by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, look at this. We've got sunshine that we're breaking out in the hill country. That said, there's not a lot of instability in the hill country, which is why it's quiet. Winds have shifted. The drier air is starting to move in. So by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the hill country, by all practical purposes, especially west of 281, probably not going to see anything. However, you will note on this image that there are several areas, these just east of Milam County, for instance, that are little tiny isolated storms. Some of these could spin up and rotate, and if they get nasty enough, there may be some tornado warning storms with these. So this is the kind of like the pre-show. This is the isolated activity that's possible ahead of the actual cold front itself, mainly east of I-35. Meantime, as that cold front approaches, this particular computer model says, yep, a line is going to boom just out of thin air, literally develop right over us, perhaps. As you can see through, I'll go back one step, through about 7 o'clock. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, I'm my mouse that I normally use to advance my graphics. Oh, I just had an epiphany. I can actually use my weather clicker. Normally I use the mouse when I'm doing Facebook Live, but I'm like, I'll use my weather clicker, I can do that. I left my mouse at home. So I'm like using the little keypad thing, you know, the touch screen with my finger, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not very precise with it. We'll use the clicker. Okay, so here we go. This is like real TV now. This is what I do when I'm actually tracking the storms on TV. As you can see, through about lunchtime, 1 o'clock, everything's tame, but after that is when things, especially toward Highway 77, get a little bit more active, and that's when we could, I say that I've got the clicker control going on, that's when we could see the storms start to become a little more potent, especially in our easternmost areas. You know, it's so interesting is I have advanced it on the computer screen, but here on Facebook Live, it's lagging. It's still showing Friday at 1 o'clock. Let's hope it's not stuck or something crazy like that. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, now it finally advanced. As you can see, there are those little tiny cells, especially from the Rockdale area, east of Giddings, east of Milam County. Those are the ones I would be concerned about to possibly turn into something. Those push east, and then we start to see the actual cold front itself push in, and with it, we're gonna likely see a line of strong to severe thunderstorms develop, perhaps over the I-35 corridor, like boom, just like that. And with it, I do think that we could see straight line wind damage as the primary threat, but then also can't rule out the possibility of, just like what happened in Gerald a couple of weeks ago, of seeing some spin-ups along that entire line. So is this going to be exactly 7 o'clock on the dot? Probably not, but let's give it a window of, say, between 5 and 8 p.m. that these storms would develop and then quickly track off to the east. As they do so, you may see some of those bright fuchsia, purplish, whitish colors. Those are the areas where I would be most concerned for potential stronger storms. So not every storm will probably produce wind damage, but some will, and there may be some cells that are rotating along the way. So by about, say, 8 to 10 p.m., we're looking at everything clearing east of the I-35 corridor, moving from Milam to Lee to Bastrop to Caldwell counties, and then by about 10 o'clock, the show's pretty much over as Giddings, LaGrange, and other areas of Fayette County and Lee County see this move out, I should say. And then by midnight tomorrow night, we're done. Get a good night's sleep, enjoy, because it's going to be beautiful, lower humidity, fresh air for the upcoming weekend. And that's it. So it's going to be pretty quick moving. And remember, as far as rainfall potential, I told you, don't get your hopes up for folks in the hill country. Look at this. Again, this is just one computer model, but it is showing pretty much nothing in the hill country. Everything, boom, blossoms right over I-35 and then tracks east. Most areas see less than an inch of rain. So I had someone asking me earlier, you know, if they should water their yard because tomorrow is watering day. And I'm like, If you're in the hill country, yeah, you probably need to water the yard, but if you're I-35 points east, hopefully Mother Nature will do that for you. Fingers crossed. Okay, just because I wanted to share with you some alternative potential. Here is a different computer model. We'll walk through time. This is 3 o'clock that's on your screen right now. And by about 5 o'clock, it's developing some storms, but as you can see, they aren't nearly as nasty looking as the previous computer model I showed you. Let's keep going through time. Here we are about 6 o'clock. Yeah, some of those storms east of Georgetown, maybe over across the Granger area, trying to get going. Farther to the north into Bell County, that one looks pretty nasty, but not as widespread and not as continuous as the previous computer model. Then as we head towards 7:30 or so, now we're talking. See how there's those bright pink colors through Milam County west of Rockdale? Yeah, it's a very narrow line, but there could be some potent storms by then, per this computer model. And then by 9:30, the system's totally gone. So this computer model overall is not as intense. It's much narrower, and it's quicker coming through, just to give you an idea. Now, just because we can, let's do the trifecta. Here's one other computer model, just to give you one other piece of what I look at, which is I look at all different computer models and then I kind of settle on what I think is most likely. So patchy showers in the morning, there you go, no big deal. Midday, breaking out into sunshine, warming up, but things are quiet. Heading into the afternoon, do storms fire up? Well, with this particular computer model, meh, not a whole lot going on. All right, let's keep going in time. Is that line of storms going to fill in like the other computer models show? Well, here's 4 o'clock. Nah, not very much, not all that impressive. There's 6 o'clock. Huh, it looks like a dud, doesn't it? And then by about 8:30, you can see through Fayette County. All right, so of the 3 computer models, the first one that I showed you is the most bullish on us getting bad weather. The second computer model does show some severe weather, but not as much. This third computer model basically says, big deal, so what? Go about your business, not a problem. So could we be preparing and this turn into nothing? We could, but I am not going to be the one that ever says, don't worry whenever there is a level 3 of 5 risk over our area. So with that said, I say, plan on the worst case scenario, and hopefully we don't have that materialize. This, again, is one more example of very little rain to the west and then half-inch totals to the east. So you've seen kind of the gamut of possibilities. And here's another one that's going to show you on the left-hand side the American GFS computer model, on the right-hand side the European computer model. In general, everyone's getting an inch or less of rain. Most areas much less than an inch of rain. So this is not a big rainmaker. All right, moving on beyond the severe weather potential. Did you guys know that as of yesterday, we had 2 concurrent hurricanes that were ongoing in the Atlantic? Lisa has since made landfall and weakened into a tropical depression. Martin is now post-tropical, but it's nasty. This thing's going to push toward the UK. It's still packing a punch, it's just post-tropical. And then 2 other things that are in the Atlantic with low development chances. November typically isn't a very active month for hurricane season. It wraps up officially on November the 30th. I actually showed you this map already. That's the rainfall forecast comparison. So without further ado, we'll get right back to the 7-day forecast. Once we get past this weather alert, there is another cold front that's likely to come through 1 week from tonight. That would be next Thursday night, the 10th. I put in a 10% chance of late storms. All the computer models I look at basically show that it's not going to have a ton of moisture to work with. It doesn't look very potent, and so more than likely, if anything, we just see a quick passing shower, and at this point, it does not look like a weather alert. So there you go. You are all caught up. I know some of you have questions. Let me go ahead and sign off on the CBS Austin page, and then I will pick things up with everybody else. Okay, so let me get back to your questions. I'm gonna have to go to the Facebook on my phone because so many of the questions have come and gone that I got to go back there to see what I've missed out on. But hopefully you guys got everything you needed from this. The idea that yes, we can compel you to be prepared and things may or may not pan out as far as who gets the severe thunderstorms or how many areas are hit by warnings. I'm confident there will be warnings for our area, mainly east of I-35. I don't know exactly where said warnings will materialize. but we'll be watching it. Let's see, Charles says you saw your son's classmate, Ezekiel Mitchell. Yes, Bob did that really cool story on the Austin Gamblers tonight on CBS Austin News. That's very cool. Danny says, well, got to get the bad weather scheduled on our calendars. Yeah. Larry says the atmosphere is getting more primed. Hanson, long time no talk. How are you? Ron checking in from Schulenburg. And for Fayette County, hopefully you got the information. For Fayette County, I'm thinking you're going to be in that 9 to 11 p.m. time frame, most likely to see the actual line of storms with perhaps damaging wind gusts pushing through. Some of those wind gusts could be 60, 65 miles per hour. Stephanie says you got here as soon as you could. Yeah, I had a feeling a lot of people were probably like on the edge of their seats watching the end of that game. But given the weather situation, I thought it was prudent for me to go ahead and do the chat tonight. Do you think the orange enhanced area will shift more west? At this point, based on the parameters I'm looking at, I would be surprised if the orange area shifts any farther west than it currently is. I kind of like where it is because if the storms basically blossom right over I-35 and then track east, I think that the positioning is pretty good where it is, in my opinion. We'll find out. We'll find out if Laura stays up late enough to see that come out. By the way, if you are following me on Twitter at Chicago Weather, I have it set up to every time that the Storm Prediction Center puts part of our area in a risk of severe weather, it automatically tweets that out. It doesn't do that on Facebook, but it does it on Twitter. So if you're ever like super curious, follow my Twitter account, and anytime we're in an excessive rainfall risk or severe weather risk, it will automatically plot there for you. Let's see. Hanson says Houston Texans close to ending Philadelphia's winning streak. Did they? You know what? I didn't even pay attention to that game because I kind of feel like Philly's been on a tear lately, right? Which, by the way, the only loss Minnesota has is to Jalen Hurts. I didn't watch that game at all, but that'd be crazy. I should go back and watch the highlights of the Texans game for tonight. Larry says it would have been hilarious if the Texans beat the Eagles tonight too. So true. Everybody in Houston would be on cloud nine. Larry says radar scope is great. Sally, you're very welcome. My pleasure. Larry asking, will I be broadcasting tomorrow evening? I will, and if we end up in a situation with tornado warnings, I will be on the air nonstop, but I've got it set up to where I will also trigger Facebook Live, so you'll be able to hear me and you'll be able to watch the feed even if you're not in front of the television. So if you've got your phone, make sure it's charged, all that stuff, all the things that you do for preparation in case you lose power, go ahead and do them just to be on the safe side. But I will stream both on Facebook as well as YouTube, as well as anything that keeps me on the air will be on the air on CBS Austin as well. And then the usual 5, 6, 6:30, 10 o'clock newscasts. Joey asking about LaGrange. Hopefully you got that information as well when I answered Ron's question. Hansen says, anticipating it. A pick from, I didn't. Then it was really close. Man, I will watch those highlights. Thomas in Boston, how you doing? Jake, getting the update. You're very welcome. My pleasure. Charles, hoping it doesn't get bad in Milam County tomorrow evening. See, I do worry about you, Charles. I will say Milam County, of all of our area, is my biggest concern because you're farthest north and east, closest to where all the ingredients really congeal. Larry says the clicker is just a mouse in disguise. In this instance, absolutely. Larry asking I-35. Yeah, what is it about that? Right. Sometimes the atmosphere seems like it knows the highways, right? Hanson says a magnet half the time. Buzzy, you're welcome. My pleasure. Ron got his Fayette County question answered. Floor, I know it's been a while. Thank you for checking in. I get to see you, hear you, all that kind of stuff. Natalie asking about Fredericksburg rain. Natalie, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. Obviously, you don't want severe weather. I wouldn't be surprised if you see zero rain, like none. Do not count on it. It does not look good for you to get. It doesn't look good for you to get severe weather. It doesn't look good for you to get rain. If you get any showers, consider that a blessing in Fredericksburg. It just doesn't look good the farther west you go. And I think we made it to the end. All right, so as always, thank you guys for checking in. I know I don't do Facebook Live quite as frequently as usual. I've been trying to really conserve my sleep time, if that makes any sense. And so that's why a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I've got like X, Y, and Z things I need to get done. And then I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, it's really late. And so a lot of times I don't do the Facebook Live. But in this case, I'm like, I need to make sure everybody's on board and knows what's up. 29-17 the final score. Could have been a good game for me to watch. I usually do. I watch those games like a hawk. All right, that is that. You can get updates in the morning from Avery Tomasco and the whole CBS Austin weather team tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow evening, we're going to have, as you might expect, reporters, myself, like our whole staff will be kind of on guard, ready to respond to whatever weather might pop up, whether it be, power outages, damage, whatever it is. We'll be on it and we will pass all that information along to you. All right, take care, you guys. Have a good night. Take care.